Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be going over Rising Flames, the patch that is coming in around 12 hours at the recording of this video. So, I'm a little late. We're going to be talking about the new uniques that are coming in the next patch, at least most of them that have been spoiled. So, the first one I want to talk about is probably one of the strongest items to ever release in last Epoch's history in general, and that is going to be Apostate Sanctuary. Now, of course, you must be wondering, Dread, why aren't you talking about Apogees? Well, Apogees is strong, but I don't think Apogees has as much of a global pull as Apostates does. Apostates is a lot more generic, let's say. And why is that? Well, Apostates gives you a bunch of HP. It makes it so that whenever you cast a spell directly, it reduces your life and ward and all that. Makes it so that health leech is disabled whenever you cast a spell directly. Gives you ward per second per 1% uncapped physical resistance while channeling Rebuke, which is very interesting, by the way. Then a bunch of more damage against boss and rare enemies, and 10 million necrotic flat for some reason. I don't know why. Now, you can completely ignore the rest of this item, because the main affix we care about is the massive 400 flat HP. Why is that? Well, the downside, the current health and ward loss whenever you directly cast a spell, that is not a downside when you're playing a class that has no spells, i.e. specifically Rogue. If you don't know, Rogue does not have access to a single spell, and this means that this is like insane on Rogue, and it's nice too because rogues in general have had a long history of having problems of building chunk, like specifically HP chunk, not like EHP chunk, which they've been really good at, but specifically just HP. That is why marksmen in Blade Dancer were very unfavored when it came to farming T4 Jurla specifically, mainly because of the fact that like you'll have 2k life, but you'll have like a higher effective life pool than any other build in the game. But since you'll be at 2k life, right, you'll instantly die to the Jurla beams. Like, of course, because it's a damage over time, you're running dodge, you're running glancing blow. That means that any kind of dot will just kill you instead of, you'd be like a werebear where you can just chonk it easily, right? And that is why Apostates is so strong, is because it's just 400 flat HP that can be used on any Blade Dancer or Marksman, specifically Marksman. Marksman benefits from this the most because Marksman has had some of the smallest HP pools in the entire game in general. So having access to this is amazing. And of course, there's the low life stuff, like of your current health and ward loss whenever, like, but mainly like Rogue is like the beneficiary of this. Of course, you could use this on low life rogue, but low life rogue is a meme. But for this, like, it might actually make it viable because of how stupidly strong this amulet is. So that's kind of funny. But like I said, every marksman, every rogue just got access to 400 HP. That's all you really need to know. Now, what's really cool is that ward per second while channeling Rebuke is really cool because you can get a lot of physical resistance. Like, let's say if you got like 500% physical resistance, which is not all that hard, by the way, that is 3,000 ward per second. Yeah, I don't know how you'd actually go about building that build. Yeah, my biggest problem is Rebuke is a spell. So like if you channel Rebuke again after channeling Rebuke, you would actually lose access to 40% of your ward because of the apostate line. So like maybe there's a build that can just kind of like play like mess around with Rebuke to get a bunch of EHP and stuff, but like it'll be a good meme. That's all I have to say. It'll be a good meme. The second item we want to talk about today is Apogee of the Frozen Light. If you don't know, this was a unique that was spoiled during the Weaver Wills unique post and completely blew the Weaver Wills uniques out of the water, as it is probably the second most powerful unique that was introduced in, Rising Flames that we know of anyways. And essentially the idea is it gives you more cold and necrotic damage chilled enemies for your minions, right? Gives you a bunch of levels to your cold and necrotic minion skills, which is good. You always need plus levels. And then whenever a minion dies, you gain a stack of Frozen Vengeance. Now, whenever you hit an enemy with a melee attack, you expend a stack of Frozen Vengeance to grant all of your minions Frenzy and 30% more damage to chilled enemies for 8 seconds, and freeze up to 8 nearby normal and magic enemies for 3 seconds. So that's really cool. I like this because it's 60% more damage for minions, like obviously. This can be used on a lot of different builds, and the best thing about it is that last line is just generic more damage, so this could be used on any minion build technically, and you could ignore the cold and necrotic damage to chilled enemies part. But overall, there's a few beneficiaries from this. Specifically, Cold Sabertooth is one of probably the biggest beneficiaries from this, and the way that you abuse that is you run a pair of Atera's Path, which summons vines whenever you're walking around, and those will die. And whenever you use your swipe, you'll gain Frozen Vengeance, give your minions 30% more damage, and of course, the Frenzy. And all of that combined is going to make this really strong in general for specifically Sabertooth, Cold Sabertooth. Now, of course, you can dual wield these. This is probably going to be insanely rare, but you're going to be able to dual wield them, which will. And of course, all of these more damage modifiers are multiplicative with each other. So if you run 2 of them, your Sabertooth is going to do insane damage. Also, as well, you can use that on cold minions like cold projectile Skelemancer. Like you can use the offhand with this as well. You could just use it on any build that's doing cold or necrotic minion damage. And there's a lot of those. So yeah, Apogee is really strong. Also saw that melee cold damage rolls all the way to 75. So this chonker has 125 flat damage on it as well. So this could be used as just a stat stick in general if you get LP on it, but good luck getting that because like I'm pretty sure this is going to have a high LP pool, right? All right, let's talk about the next one. The next unique that we're going to be talking about today is Cradle of the Erased. So this is a Weaver's Will item. That means it will spawn with either 5 up to 28 Weaver's Will. That means it can either have 4 T7s or 4 tier 1s and 1 tier 2. It's completely random. I'm going to assume that you're going to at least get 4 tier 5s on it before you use it, right? And now the Weaver's Will system is looking pretty papega. Like the LP system is better, but the Weaver's Will system is specifically better on shields because there are a lot of good modifiers on shields. Like its modifier pool is a lot more dense. There's less modifiers in general, and there's a lot of better modifiers in general because block chance, block effects, stuff like that. And there's not that many in regards to that, right? And of course, that last line, the block effectiveness per 1% total uncapped res, if you have a way of capping your block chance while also wearing the shield, it's going to be insanely strong. But good luck doing that as it starts out with 16% block, right? And that's going to be really hard to get all the way to max block chance, right? Now, this gain a stack of Golden Aegis that is 13% block chance, and it stacks up to 4 times. So it'll be really good on bosses specifically, but like it's going to be bad while clearing and killing enemies in the monolith, because that's actually one of the things you die to most of the time is when 5 undead Wingari hit you at once, and this is not going to save you versus those. So I'm very interested to see the future of this item. Like I said, it's cool, but its numbers are very low. Like its implicit is very bad. If it had a little bit of a better implicit, I could see it. Because like most of the time, you either like you don't want 50% block. You want 100% block chance. If you have 70% block chance, sure, some of the hits that you block, you're not going to like take. But it's going to be the blocked hits that you don't block, like the hits that you don't block that are going to kill you. Right, so that's the problem with block in general is either it's feast or famine, and this definitely does not scream feast, but we'll see. Font of the Erased. So So the idea of this ring is it's going to make it easy to stay to your HP count when you're a low life build. So for instance, if you have 3,000 life, right, it's going to be very easy to stay up to 3,000 ward if you're playing like a Shatter Strike build or any build that hits a lot, right? So the way it works is you gain 1 ward on hit per 10 missing mana if your current ward is less or lower than your missing health. That means that if you're missing all of your health, right, and then you're missing all of your mana, let's say you have 200 mana, you'll gain like 20 ward on hit, I think, if you have like 200 mana, and it will keep going until you reach to 3,000 HP or whatever HP you have, right? And this is really good for low life builds in general, because one of the biggest problems with low life builds in general was sustain. Low life was really good for getting a large EHP pool, but if you lost this EHP, right, you took a hit, you're just going to die because you took one big hit and your ward isn't going to climb up back fast enough to reach to a point where it can actually keep you alive. While Font of the Erase allows you to go low life and at least stay your HP. So for instance, specifically builds like Werebear, low life Werebear are going to love this ring, because low life Werebear is going to be at like 4k HP and you're going to be able to sustain 4k ward with this item. Now the problem is like, I don't think it's going to work with Rage, so I lied to you. Sorry about that. It's going to only work on non-transform builds, it seems. That's kind of funny. So like, it's going to be very bad on Rogue, because Rogue doesn't get that high of just HP in general. Like it could be good on like Mage. Like I said, the biggest problem is it is low life, right? So like, and it's a lot of things to like scale. Like you gotta scale max mana. You gotta, well, not scale it, but like at least get to like 200 max mana. Because like, let's be real, do you really care if you have like less than like 200 mana with this thing? Like 20 mana on hits good enough. Like this ring is a conundrum, right? It's interesting. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is knowledge of an erased mage. So it's a Weaver's Wool item, but we can completely ignore that because the last line is so strong, you don't even actually need to have affixes on this item to be good. Now, endurance applies to additional 5 health per 10 missing mana. Let's assume that you're playing a mage build that is stacking mana. You have like 500 mana per se, right? That means that 250 of that mana, like you get 250 additional endurance threshold. That is really strong, because one of the biggest problems with Mage was it was like one of those builds that wanted to play endurance threshold stuff because the mana taken before mana and all that. The problem with this is like you want to have endurance threshold to make it even stronger, and endurance threshold is notoriously hard to stack. So this gives you like an extra 200 to 400 flat endurance threshold, which is insanely strong. All you have to do is make sure that you're running out of mana, and on a mage, on a sorcerer, that is very easy to do. So knowledge of the erased mage is probably going to be very strong because of that. So woohoo, right? I like that. I think that's fine. I think that's a good unique. It's going to be insanely strong on specific builds, and it's going to be a defensive layer that you can actually build on mage. But of course, this begs to differ, right? Like, is mage just going to be uniques? Like, all of your defensive capabilities as a mage, is that only going to be uniques, right? That seems to be the case. Yeah, with all that being said, that's going to be pretty much it. Apostate Sanctuary, one of the best items in the game. Bye, guys.